Welcome back to Asambe. Today we are with Thembi, who is a director and executive director at Book Dash, and we are going to hear all the cool aspects of her life, how she ended up here, and what advice she can give you.
Thembi, or Thembi Shangase, worked with me in a previous job.
Many moons ago.
And many moons ago. It feels like many moons ago, but it was literally in 2020 during the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
And I learned so much from you, and I'm so glad that we had this opportunity of still creating this relationship.
Amazing.
And that's what this thing is about. You create friends, you continue being friends, and that's really how it goes in life. Today we are talking about your experience, and we're going to get to your career. But I feel like every time I talk to you, you have such great insights, because this podcast is about youth, and we want to basically expose youth to a career path which they must not have interacted with or engaged with. And you're an executive director, but you are not always an executive director. You climbed the ladder, you started somewhere, and we want to discuss that journey in a way.
Yeah, I know you said that you're very passionate about equity and things. So maybe tell us a little bit about what do you think about what's going on with unemployment in South Africa? What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, fantastic. Firstly, really thank you so much for hosting me, guys. And it's amazing that after so many years, Ali, we get to come back together and have this conversation, right? And echoing you, it's really also about the networks and the relationships you build. The moments where they come back together and you can actually do exciting things together. So why is equity so important for me? I am a rural-born child. So I'm from Ndwedwe Tafamasi, which is part of the Valley of 1,000 Hills. So from anyone that is from KwaZulu-Natal, it sits between Pietermaritzburg, Tonga, Stanger, and Durban, right? It is to date, and I think to my knowledge, one of the rural areas that has the highest child-headed homes. And during the HIV/AIDS pandemic period also had really high statistics around HIV/AIDS, and the reason there was such high child-headed homes was because parents were being lost to HIV/AIDS. So being rural born, I think born in 1985, I must say, because I think that's important. I was born in 1985. My mom then was just finishing her nursing education. My dad was working in various firms and a hawker. For those that don't know what a hawker is, it's people that sell things door to door. In peri-urban areas and rural areas, they're normally selling cosmetics, those kind of things. And that's basically how they were making a living. For the first 4 years of my life, I was raised by my grandparents on both sides of the family. So in the village, always had the dusty legs and the hair that's full of sand. Picture your typical rural child that lives with a granny. Yeah, it's just like a little bit scruffy, messy, because all your life is spent outdoors, and a grandparent's way of raising children is go outside and play and adventure into the world.
I'm imagining a young Thembi right now.
Yeah. Listen.
I should have asked you for a picture.
Yeah, I would have had to ask my mom. There's one where I had a little 2-liter water bottle over my head because we fetched water from the river.
Yeah.
That's what we did. So that was the first 4 years. And then I moved to an area called Inanda. Inanda is Stop 8. Which is an informal settlement kind of area. And that's where my parents lived then. And that's where I sort of started the journey into, I guess, formal education, doing preschooling, all of it. I think it was my mother's passion for education that made me aware of inequality. And I don't think she did it intentionally. I think she did it to expose me to the world and to better outcomes. So from when I started living with them, she took me to Saturday English classes in town. It was a speech and drama course, and we would do anything from poetry, and it was for her to socialize me to English, because her intention, of course I learned this much later, was for me to be able to go into an English medium school instead of being in an African medium school. So my first 2 years of formal schooling, or maybe let's say 3, because now grade R is part of school, first 3 years were Zulu medium schools, and then in grade 3 I went into an English medium school in Verulam. The 2 years prior, my Saturdays from morning till midday were spent in the CBD in Durban at a speech and drama school. It was absolutely fun doing it because we do poetry, drama, all of those things, and I was learning English. And then going to my first English medium school, which was in Verulam, then you start seeing homes that look quite different to what your environment is. So remember, I grew up in the village, so your roundabouts, dusty roads, walking for miles to get whatever you need. And that was normal. I didn't feel anything wrong about that. And then moving to Inanda, which is now informal settlements, the homes are a little bit more cramped. There's still, mud houses, but there's also your shanty shacks kind of homes. And the space is a bit different to what you have. So now I'm aware. And then I'm going to a school that's in Verulam, and I'm seeing these really formal housing structures with water that's inside of the home. You turn the tap in the school and the water comes out, and it's something I haven't experienced. And I think my child mind started asking why these differences exist. And I even remember very vaguely as a child, my parents will send me on holidays to my aunt who lived in Mpangeni, well, there's Kawini back then. And they had a formal housing because it was a township, but, a township had taps inside. And then there was also that, okay, why is their home different from our home? What's creating those shifts? And I think from age 11, every time I was in the village, there was this yearning in me for people in the village to have a different life. And this continued, I think, through school, because from Verulam, I then went to Gordon Road Girls, which was in CBD. It was an all-girls school, and it was a previously Model C school. So again, I'm like one of two people of color in my class. And so you start seeing these differences again. And this is pretty much as a story of every average South African that has gone to multiracial schools, been raised pretty much around the time that we were raised. And it made me aware that whilst we're born in a country, especially as an adult, where there is equal freedoms in terms of the Charter, the promises and the Constitution, life is not necessarily equal.
Yeah.
For all
100%.
people, and young people and people in general from peri-urban areas, from rural areas, their trajectory and their economic mobility takes a lot more than somebody coming from a very urbanized environment and very well off in terms of incomes and economics. Of course, I can put the words to this now because I've kind of done a master's in development studies, and I now kind of understand how economics works and how what are the factors that influence social and socioeconomic mobility. And that, I think, brings me to youth unemployment, right? When there's still unequal distribution of resources, or at the very least of access across the country, there is going to be a perpetual tension in terms of the jobs that people can access. And really, remember, the quality of job that you have enables you to access more things, to have a life that has a lot more freedom. It gives you opportunity, variety in opportunities, right? And I think that's part of the challenge, where the provision in terms of schools, the curricular access in terms of just the schooling system as well is not the same across the country. During my master's, I did a research paper that looked at youth aspirations in rural areas, and there was a disconnect between what they wanted to do and what was available in their schools. There are young people who wanted to go into accounting professions, become auditors, but they couldn't take that path because in their schools there was no accounting teachers. So they had to go in a different route, sometimes a route that's more difficult and not really linked to their own abilities and desires. So they might go a science route because that's the only thing that's available. Yeah. But then the science route, and they're not really performing exceptionally well. If you're not performing exceptionally well, what's the next step when you leave school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, I resonate with that so much because my mother was very similar.
Yeah.
She also prioritized education without knowing about it, right?
Yeah.
When we were young, she would compare my English with my cousin's English.
Yeah.
She would be like, their English is better than your English. Yeah. What are you doing? Learn better English. And it's such a cathartic experience listening to you. There is a question that I know the answer to,
Yeah.
but I want the listeners to know the answer to as well, because we talk about access, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up in Tanzania,
Yeah.
and my mother was privileged enough to have the background or the space around her to be able to live in CBD,
Yeah.
in Dar es Salaam CBD, which is a very big thing.
Yeah.
It's a very big thing, right?
Yeah.
And I remember every day I would take a minibus taxi version called
Yeah.
Dala to go to school.
Yeah.
It would take me 30 minutes, but it was a school where I learned education, and that's the reason why I'm here.
Yeah.
I know exactly why. It's that.
Yeah.
And she would fight tooth and nail for that education.
Absolutely.
Right? She would do anything. I have been one of those students who actually was being put outside this class and being kneeling down because we didn't pay the fees on time.
Oh, man.
Right? But my mom found a way to get that education. So there is an argument, of course, that people will make. Again, I know it's an unfair argument, but what's your response to it? Where they say that your mom tried and she put you into the school. Why aren't other people's parents trying? What's the argument there?
Gee, I think that's unfair and unjust, right? I'm a second generation graduate.
100%, by the way.
So my mom really distinctly knew the value, and her parents knew the value because she was born to a deacon. My granddad was working at the church. Her mom only finished grade 3.
Wow.
But they made sure, her parents made sure that she got into the school, the parish school, and all of her siblings, by the way, were into the same parish school. And I think her own experience of poverty is what actually drove her to that. She is the 3 of them. The children, they got hand-me-down clothes and got clothes from other children in the school. And they got meals from other children in the school. And I think just that experience on its own for her was, I do not want my child to go through this. So one, there was somebody else in her lifeline that gave her that access, and she realized that the only way out of this is through education. And why only education? I mean, we have no assets to pass down. And the lands in most villages are lands under authority of traditional and tribal leaders. It's not land that you automatically pass down and can be valued and you can actually do something that is productive. To do that, there's a lot of negotiation and community agreement that needs to be done. So I think for me, anybody that would say that, I'd say you want to go back to the history of this country. That's where you start, because people of color in this country had assets. They had assets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were taken away. And so currently the generations that we have now are trying to claw back building economic means. So if someone has not had the privilege or opportunity to grow up in a household where someone knows how to, because I think knowing how to is a big thing. Your mom knew how to fight. My mom figured out how to navigate the system to get me to where I needed to be. Someone who does not know. Imagine a household where the whole lineage might have not had access to high quality education. There are no graduates. All they know is that yes, you need to get to school, but they don't know that there's bursaries available. They don't know what opportunities are there. So they're either telling their children, go be a police or go become, what a job, whatever is close to what they see in their world, or hey, go be a taxi driver, you get a license, because that's what they're exposed to. So when you're not exposed to more than what's in your sphere, it somewhat contains your dreaming, and I think I'm gonna dovetail a little bit here to some of my life experiences and how I started seeing the world. There's, of course, the learning and going through different schools, but something unique that my mom did between the ages of 9 and 5, she got me a set of books, Childcraft books. And I think it's about 24 books. And back then, Childcraft would have been 2,000 Rand. Now, remember, if it's between age of 5 and 9, she is probably a staff nurse at that moment. So she's not even a fully qualified nurse yet. And to spend 2,000 Rands, she must have had to save quite a lot. And for those early years, between 5 and 9, I think 2 or 3 of them, she was predominantly at the nursing accommodation where she was doing a full-time study. So she was only coming home on weekends or when she was working shifts that allowed her to be a little bit more. So it was then me and my dad. So that means the little stipend she got in nursing school, she was probably saving and not splurging on takeout meals or anything. She was eating whatever was afforded to them in the college to save up for whatever my dad and I needed, and then also to get me those books. And amongst those books was a book that was the World Atlas. Guys, like I talk about this book forever. It is by far the best book that was created for me because it wasn't just like the globe in its prettiness like you see in the ball of a globe. You would get the continent, and then on the next page, you've got the culture and the people in the continent. And then you get the food in the continent. And then you get the language in the continent. And then you get the animals in the continent. And suddenly it was like, this world is amazing. It's huge. There's so many different things. I started learning about different countries. So I got into school, into like these topics formally already been introduced to me. And I've seen what the world kind of looks like out there. Like there's a window that was given me through just the access of those books and information. So my argument will be one of the biggest barriers for people moving in life is lack of access to information in a way that resonates with them and meets them where they are.
I agree with that so much. I want to come to Saleha in a bit, but I just wanted to add a tidbit that access is so misunderstood. There's a person we know, and he was chatting with me recently, and he lives in Kailicha, and his mom fought tooth and nail to get him education here nearby an observatory in a formal school. He had to travel 1 hour every day. And he said the education was amazing. But my mom didn't realize, but I was getting bad grades. I was just failing at school. My mom didn't realize that 1 hour travel every day was affecting me so much. That's a small thing. But it's not small. It's huge. It's a privilege. People spend 5 years of their lives traveling.
Wow.
Just to get,
work,
someone from Kailicha spends 5 years of their lives traveling to work every day.
Oh, wow. I've never heard it like that before.
5 years. Imagine in 5 years how much income you can earn, right?
I'm stumped.
100%. Wow. And just to add another statistic, which I always resonate with quite a lot, I used to work in the road safety space, and I had a colleague from the Road Traffic Management Corporation, and he was doing this general survey one day, and he stands on the road, and he saw this woman cross the road rather than go across the pedestrian bridge. We see that in South Africa. People just cross the highway, and we are like, they don't follow rules. These people don't follow rules, right? And so he goes up to her and he removes his banner of the RTMC and goes like, I'm not here to enforce anything. I'm just inquisitive. Can you please tell me why you did that? Why did you cross here rather than cross at the bridge? She said a fact which was shocking to me. She said that if I cross here, the taxi charges me 10 rands. If I cross at the bridge, the taxi charges me 11 rands. 1 rand.
And a
For
person
her
would risk
at
their
that
life.
point, it wasn't risking life, it was food. For her, it was food. We think of it as risking life. For her, she has done it many times. Nothing happened.
So if I save 5 rand in a week, it's something I can actually...
It's enough for me.
And I think it speaks so much to just the different realities that people live in South Africa. And I think discussions like this are so important because it kind of takes us back to how we can improve situations that are unfortunately historically and still even till today spatial apartheid is a very it's a reality. I was lecturing at UWC up until this year, and if you know UWC then you know that the kind of people who come there are very different from UCT, and I absolutely love that because you actually feel part of a community. But I so many students who would tell me that they didn't actually want to do the degree that they were doing. And it kind of goes back to what you said about, someone wanted to do accounting, but they didn't actually know. I had one student who said to me that she didn't even know what she was coming to study because she couldn't like submit the application. It was her brother or her uncle who went and did it for her, so she had no idea what she was getting into, and she was not enjoying it at all. And then it makes you think, how would somebody succeed if they don't enjoy what they're doing? And so my question to you is, how would you give people who would want to pivot with in terms of their career choices and opportunities? Because once you're at a university, then you still might have a little bit more of choice. And I think even once you've done a degree, you know, do have more options than you would think.
Well, so it's an opportunity, pivot opportunity, I think, when you're already sitting within a university, right? Because there's this thing that universities can do where they can transfer your credits from one course to another course if these are within the sort of same discipline studies, right? But also there's within the universities, then there would be outside where you can actually sit down with subject matter experts and ask them a little bit more about how to pivot and where to shift. And I think I can probably say by now I feel like I'm a bit of a master of pivots because I've pivoted so much. I mean, my first qualification was in sports sciences, and that's because I was quite athletic in school and could not see myself behind a desk at all. Wow. Came back to the labor market. It didn't work out. My mother said, "You are going back to school." So 23, I had to figure out what to do. And I think I was fortunate probably 2 years prior to that, within my community, church community, someone spoke a word that was very resonant. Now, remember I said by the age of 11, I had realized that there was inequality in the country and that something just was amiss and was unjust in society, but did not know how to deal with it. And it's always, compassion has probably been a huge factor in me, in my life, and a zeal to help has always been there. And the word I'd received had been around the work I'm likely to do in my life is going to be one that's going to unlock a lot for people who are poor, who don't have access for themselves. And I did that because it was so resonance with what I knew I kind of wanted to do. And it was about, okay, now that the confirmation that part of my purpose in life and meaning is about unlocking for others, how do I do this? So my next step in terms of researching what I would study next was about what allows me unparalleled access to knowledge across diverse topics. So I then took a social science in management and communications. Through management, I got almost like the business education, HR, marketing, you can name it, got exposure to that. Through the communication side, and I could blend it. So in communications, I took media studies and I took political science and sociology. Whoa. So you can imagine.
You covered everything.
I covered everything.
You didn't want your mom to send you back now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was like, no ways. If she sends me back, like, when am I going to work? And through that, it also just gave me more exposure to where the challenges in the world sit. In politics, I understood diplomacy, power, and also that are used to encourage or rather co-opt countries into certain behaviors, international relations, right? Media studies, got to learn about new media, got to understand things that symbolize things and how they're used in advertising, all of those really exciting things. I mean, there was even a stint where I did translations.
Oh, wow.
And that was, enlightening. And then in internet studies, learned about also just the new media domain, what was coming up through there and how visibility changes dialogue. I mean, one of the projects we did was around dignity. And my project was looking at gender-based violence and giving voice to that, and literally had a whole blog that I was posting on every day. The study was looking at a peri-urban salon versus an urban salon and how visual presence made a difference in the clientele that they got and how they could run their business. The urban salon in the CBD, Florida Road in Durban, most beautiful salon, had a beautiful website, the prices could charge, the clientele they attracted. The peri-urban salon, completely different clientele, completely different financial management systems. So you can see all of this just kind of like gave me insights into different worlds. And going back to my atlas, at the end of my third year, I thought, okay, I now know all of these things, but I'm still feeling a little bit lost and still kind of searching for meaning. And then decided that I wanted to go do an exchange in Finland,
Nice.
a country that I knew absolutely nothing about aside what I was reading. The language would have been different, so it gives me exposure to intercultural communications. It gives me exposure to a different way, a different world, a different society, and basically shock my system. Arrived in Finland. It was on the 1st of January, 1st January 2011, -6 degrees. And this South African girl had never been north, had traveled around the country through sports, but had never been that far. Lovely girl, Finnish girl, met me with, a substantial amount of English to get me and help me learn how to get around. And one of the modules I took, because remember I was searching, was around the development of the welfare estates. And through that module, I got to learn how the Finns intentionally designed the system that they have today, how they put the family at the center of their welfare state, and how the family being okay meant that the economy can be okay.
Oh, wow.
I suddenly was in spaces where, now remember, we're in South Africa, there's a face and a race to certain segments on certain job clusters. I'm now sitting in Finland, and every day is a shock because that doesn't exist.
Wow.
The faces look the same. The person who is asking me to just shuffle a little bit whilst I'm sitting at reception to vacuum looks the same as the person sitting at reception desk. The person who drives the bus, the lady, lives in a neighborhood that's equivalent to Observatory.
Wow.
And I mean, I know this because I joined the Finnish Friendship Club, and one of the ladies that was my friend was somebody who worked in the transport industry and was a bus driver. They didn't live in a Kailija. They didn't live where they were excluded. And you know what's the one thing on top of this family center that the Finns did? They put education as the highest priority. Every single level of education, from preschool, even before, right through to university education, is absolutely free.
And that's the interesting discussion. We had Cameron here before,
Yeah.
and we always go down to the fees must fall discussion.
Yeah.
The fees must fall discussion was such a pivotal moment in South Africa
Yeah.
that many people don't realize about.
Yeah.
Many people made it about different things.
Yeah.
They said, "Oh, people just want free things."
Yeah.
No, that's not the case. Second, people said, "Oh, people are fighting for free education at university level." No, that was also not what it was about. And I want your opinion on it. From the discussions I've had with people, it was about two things.
Yeah.
One was decolonize education, means that talk to us about things that are happening in our country and in Africa, where amazing things have happened, or similar countries. In fact, there are so many great examples of things happening in Brazil and India, which are very similar contexts to South Africa.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Why are you telling us about Western countries that have not similar context? The second thing was about getting free education that is good quality education.
Yeah.
Now, there is a difference there.
Yeah.
There is a massive difference, and that's what your mom realized. I think that where she was saying that if I send Thembi to a school where there's English as a medium, her opportunities are doubled or tripled. And that's a massive difference from the education that people have access to in this country. Do you feel that is the case?
Start backwards. I definitely think education has a multiplier effect on what people have access to. And you're absolutely right, not just any, but quality education. So let's define quality education, right? It's the instruction, it's class sizes, it's the material, it's access to things. Imagine trying to do, and I'm thinking you might have in your high school education, if you sciences, there's a sulfur experiment that's done, and it's part of the you remember it, yes, part of like the matric, I think grade 11 curricula.
Yes.
Now imagine trying to understand that without that stinky sulfur smell. Because remember, experience leaves an imprint in your mind a lot more than what you can actually just read. So quality education then speaks to not only do I have to have the books and the resources, but I need to have the materials to experiment. Because remember, as humans, we learn through different ways. We read, we feel,
yeah.
we watch that, we form our meaning, life, and understanding, and whatever subject matter we're talking about. And this is for the same reason why doctors have to do practicals. Before they actually get certified as a doctor, you have to have done a community service, because you actually need to know what that disease profile is.
Yes.
In the community with an actual patient who might not speak the same language as you, and understand how to treat them before we can actually say, great, you are a fully qualified doctor. We're now happy to put you into our tertiary hospital or which other hospital system. So I think if we go back to the idea of fees must fall or education, I think resonant education helps people move forward. I think it needs to be a blend of both, because also we don't want to get to a point where our system is only looking inward towards Africa and we're actually not learning anything about the other. We're living in such a globalized world that understanding what's happening in other countries from economic mobility, from business sense, opportunities mapping, from risk understanding, we need to, in our modern day society, understand what's happening beyond our borders. How are policies, hypothetically, in different countries start going to shape the future of our continent? How are decisions being made by our leaders going to affect our opportunities? How are trade relations being created going to affect opportunities and risks and where we can go in terms of life? So when your education is comprehensive and is both the global, the local, you're able to, one, appraise the local indigenous knowledge systems, appraise what's happening in other countries, actually be aware that there are so many African countries that are high flyers and are doing such amazing thing from an innovation perspective, understanding their trajectory, how they're navigating those systems. And also I think helps us have an eye as South Africans of seeing Africa as a space for opportunity and a space as we can grow, that we can grow. Favorite things about decisions being made by the African Union and actually choosing to try drop some of the visa barriers that have been there is that now it gives us opportunity for us as South Africans to actually think, I can go work in Kenya.
Yeah.
I can go work in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
I could go work in Rwanda. Suddenly, our world stops being just South Africa and we start to look for opportunities beyond and want to seek those opportunities. If a system doesn't enable us to understand, or education system doesn't give us an opportunity to actually understand all of that, we can keep ourselves quite locked.
Yes.
In our perspective of my lovely little square or my little circle, and that becomes a reality of life, and it's not necessarily the truth. You know?
I really like how you kind of put that in the most articulate way, because I talk a lot about decoloniality. I'm writing a book chapter on it now, and I think something that I often have a conversation with people about is exactly that how do we have this balance, right? Because it's not a bad thing to know about the world, but also the way in which we think should be centered around our values and our, like you said, how Finland has centered the family at the, at the core of everything. Like that is such a, it's a thing that all people of color experience. You will very rarely be
Ubuntuism.
estranged, from family. And it's really interesting that you can have these two, what some might think are almost opposite values, kind of complement each other if you have, the right tools and the right thinking.
Exactly. I mean, how do we work, guys?
To have a life.
To have a life, right? And I think this is something I probably learned quite late, and I'll be very honest, something I learned quite recently at a personal level, right? We work because we want to have life, but also we work for the families, especially once you have a family. It's about the children, it's about, and then coming from an African background, it's about my siblings, it's about my parents who are now both retired. That's why we work, So when you can start thinking about it, yes, it's about enjoying, but it's also about building a life for yourself and building a future and building a future for your family. So in essence, when you center family in policy, you almost are, you working at the motivations of people, because know that this policy is about my family, being okay, and there's a willingness to contribute, you know.
I want to bring it back to your career as well now. So, Thembi, you're a black woman from a village who is now an executive director at an organization in Cape Town. Wow. Just in a word, wow.
Yeah.
Right? So, taking a moment and just celebrating you, right? But I hope this podcast reaches someone in your village at some point who is listening and she gets inspired by you. Can we talk about that after Finland? Like, how did you reach here? How did you become an executive director? Because that's a pipe dream for millions. If you tell a black girl in a village that you're going to be an executive director, I think she's going to tell you, no. Please, can you stop messing around with me? Can you stop messing around with me? In fact, if you had to go back and if you had to tell Thembi, who is 3 years old, that you're going to be, do you think she would say yes? She would agree with you? No, even your mother wouldn't expect it. So what happened? What happened after Finland that led?
Still surreal. You know, when you said it now and you said pause, people often say, Timmy, it's such a big role. And my head till today, I'm just Thembi. I'm just Thembi who has this incredible hunger to see a different South Africa, a different continent. I'm this Thembi that wants the kid from the deepest village of our country to have a future they've never thought of, you know? And to be honest, sometimes I get shy to say, I'll be in conversation. I was in a plane on Thursday, and I'm talking to this other MD of a multinational, you know, organization across sub-Saharan Africa. And we're talking about different things. And we're talking about our model at Book Dash, what we do, how we distribute the books, how we create them, our numbers, our stats, where I think the growth is going to go. Really exciting stuff. And he goes, okay, so who's the MD? I'm like, it's me. And he's like, wow, you know? And I said, it's me, but it wasn't like, oh, me. It was, there's still moments where I'm like, shucks. At the helm of this amazing organization that's reached more than 1 million children. I mean, we print about 1 million books a year, but there's a whole team that's behind all of the work. We've got a board that really champions us. And so firstly, the pause is, it's such a privilege that's out there looked at my CV and my profile and said, this could be the next Book Dash leader. So firstly, took somebody recognizing, so visibility. After Finland, what happened? I wanted that hunger to see South Africa where Finland is. I thought, okay, what next? Then I did a master's in development studies. Like the immediate thing that I enrolled in after that was a master's in development studies. And even whilst doing my master's, I was lecturing undergraduates in management studies. I was mentoring undergraduate students in terms of critical thinking. I was an academic development officer concurrently at UKZN. And being an academic development officer means that you would know, similar to the UWC profile of students, and probably if we had to think of LSM measures, it's also a little bit of a profile. It was in the era where mass access to university education was being driven. So all of the scholarships and all of systems were about getting as many students into the system as possible. Being an academic development officer, I was dealing with students coming from rural high schools, high flyers, came first in school, did really well. I've never seen a computer.
Yeah.
I remember sitting in the computer labs showing students how to switch on a computer, how to type their assignments, having to help them think about reasoning and critical thinking, tutoring them on all of those, all whilst I'm doing my master's as well at the same time.
Saleha had a very similar experience.
Yeah.
Same at UWC. I think it made me feel so privileged, but also in this, when you're in that position where you can actually help others, it's very humbling.
Yeah.
But exactly that you get as I often think that now kids grow up, everyone has access to digital tools, but that's not true at all.
not.
And it's a shocking reminder.
Yeah, absolute shocking reminder, right? Of still 30 years on, that inequality is still something we have to spend years dealing with, you know? So experience that. I think maybe from my master's on, my life was, but felt, if I reflect back, felt a little bit about catch up. It was about how could I compress again as much experiences as possible to get to where I have an opportunity
Yeah.
to make decisions that can affect the next person positively. So whilst doing my master's, I'm teaching, I'm mentoring, I'm researching as well, because the paper that I told you about was during it was the first paper that I presented at a conference. And again, I draw from my experiences a lot. And using that paper was because every time I went to the village, I would get frustrated by the peers who are my age who have not gone to some post matric education, who are stuck. And then I started wondering about those that are in school. So maybe I can't do anything about those that are stuck, but what about those in school? And I started asking these questions. And that was the first paper I did. The second paper was a little bit of a segue, but it was about premarital childbearing among Zulu-speaking women and marriage, particularly those that were in education, because education forms the way you look at the world. So you can see I'm publishing at the same time as I'm in university. And then I presented a conference paper on what I was academic development work that I was doing with the students, what kind of scaffolding is required for students. And there is a researcher, his name I think is Vincent Tinto. And Vincent Tinto speaks about the education space as that thing that I mentioned, the grace, meeting people where you're at, saying you need to stop teaching or designing curricula for where you want people to be only, but actually understand where people are. So being really, really realistic and honest. And if it means that there are use of scaffolding, if it means that the way the tutorials are designed are taking into cognizance the inequalities, are taking into cognizance some of the social aspects. So how do you explain something in such a way that somebody who's never been exposed to it, by virtue of where they come from, that they actually get to a point where they understand it and they can explain it back to their own community. So did that, finished the coursework, and then this is now where the rubble hits the road. I need to make an earnings, proper earnings beyond working within the university system. I got a role at Urban Econ. Oh, sorry, in between, I got side jobs as doing surveys for different institutions that were collecting data across development institutions. So I'd always find these short-term jobs that I would do to just bolster my CV. Before my master's, I must say, I also worked at the World Cup as a venue broadcast assistant manager. So I went out looking for things that would augment what I was learning in class with what was in the world, because then suddenly it could become quite practical. Finished my master's, the coursework, then went into the job market, worked as a development economist at Urban Econ for about 3 years. There we were developing strategies for public sector, private sector, and these were economic development strategies to research firstly, so understand the population growth, understand the economic opportunities that are there, the industries in these particular areas, where are the levers that these local municipalities could use to propel the municipality forward. Did studies around creative sector, so around animation, around visual effects, around the film industry, and this was like industry specific studies, understanding the mechanisms. Again, how do we grow back then it was for either a specific municipality or it was for a specific province. So how does the province use that particular sector as a way of creating jobs, as a way of growing the economy? What are the opportunities? And I did that for like a good 3 years. And then what I realized, it's beautiful to put strategies together and give them to government. And then you kind of wait for them to implement it.
Yeah, and that never happens. That's what I learned from my job. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like
long waiting.
There's a lot of will that's required, from the government, and you have no control. So I had to learn that I have no control over that.
That's the biggest gap we have, actually.
Yeah.
Just as a side, that's the biggest gap. The problem is not that we don't have strategies.
Yeah.
We have wonderful policies.
Yeah.
If we could just get a bunch of young people to implement That's what the gap in society
Yeah.
is. But
Yeah.
sorry to continue.
It's the implementation and the right, because implementation, the will and the to implement.
Yeah.
There's budgets, and being able to motivate for the budgets that you need to be able to implement what needs to be implemented, and within a realistic time frame. You know, and this I'm saying now, close to. So I left urban econ 2014. And this is now close to 10 years after finishing that job that I can now say that. At that moment, I was just angst, and I'm like, something has to happen, you know? And I moved to the other end of the spectrum of development. I joined Data as a quantitative research analyst and researcher. Data back then was doing a lot of data collection for the social impact space at large. So from the education, youth, e-penetration, lots of different studies. And it was mainly monitoring and evaluation type of data, baseline, endline studies, or surveys. And then I'm on the other end, and I'm now realizing when we look at the data, I'm like, didn't somebody figure this out when they designed this? You know?
Who would have thought?
Exactly. And that was quite interesting. I mean, I spent 4 years there, learned an incredible amount about the education space. The first survey that was done around the early years, part of the team that did that survey and that rolled it out on the ground. Funda one day when they were building, I was part of the team that at Data that worked on their baseline and their midline and endline studies. So suddenly all of this field work and data collection around the education space was sitting at, you know, where I was. And what does this mean? I'm traveling across the country, seeing various approaches to early learning and various approaches to education, various implementation gaps around it and opportunities. And so those 4 years, I think, became the building block for where I'm at now, and also a little bit for the work that I did before joining Book Dash. Book Dash, because of all of the learnings, the early understanding the reality in terms of the gaps in early learning, the requirements for books and resources, the early learning educational outcomes, early years being the bedrock for any future education that could happen, because actually it's in those first few years where a child from the age of 0, in fact, to about 2, and then 3 to 5, and then to 6, where children can actually develop critical thinking, ability to read, numeracy skill, cognitive functioning, executive functioning, which is like the grip and all of that, and socio-emotional mastery. Because through books, you suddenly learn how to say please, thank you, how to build friendships, the stories that are written help you build these other social skills. Coming back, so I'm going to pause that one. And then coming back to youth education. So I now know foundation phase is where the gap is, but there isn't much that's happening there that I could instantly plug into the skill set that I'd built. So skill set was project management, strategy development, monitoring and evaluation type of skill set, stakeholder management and engagement, communication skills that I've built, mentorship and coaching because of all that I'd done in the university space. Then it was, okay, what is the next? And this is before we meet. And I think in my 4th year at Data, then again, that burning of, okay, I've developed a strategy, haven't seen the implementation part of it. I've now been at the tail end of evaluations, either at the beginning before people design things, giving the data, or at the end where people have designed things and we're now looking at the data. And there's still that big part of me that said, I actually want to be at the center of it. Like I want to contribute to the shaping. And a recruiter contacts and says, we're looking at your CV and we're looking at your LinkedIn profile, and you look like you've done a lot of pivots in your career. There's this amazing opportunity. There's an organization that is funded by a corporate, and they're wanting to do youth skills development. Remember my paper about young people not being able to transition and meet the outcomes that they wanted because they didn't have systems that enabled them to? And I thought, whoa, this is it. This could be it. I could actually do this. Full circle. I could actually do this. There's an opportunity to shift opportunities for millions, hopefully, at that moment of young people, because suddenly I can sit at the table and kind of motivate from my lived experience and
Yeah.
from what I've seen about how do we shape a program for young people in this country, taking into cognizance inequality, locations and proximity, where the opportunities are coming. Remember, I mentioned global knowledge and understanding where
Yes.
the shifts are, understanding which industries are right now at that moment poised for absorbing a lot of talent. So I'm not going to mention the company, but go to this company and it's an opportunity to completely redesign their youth program. And the then director that we had, I mean, me and her immediately were like a house on fire, similar mindset. She had exposure across the country, also deep passion for rural areas and villages. And together we were able to design a program that firstly looked at young people, prioritized young people coming from peri-urban to rural areas, because we're fully aware that unless capital went and invested in doing programs that were in those locations, those young people will always be forced to migrate into urban centers to try find an opportunity. So our program and the design, it needs to be young people from rural areas. It needs to be young people that come from TVETs. Because why? And this is sad to say, when you don't sound like Thembi, in some places you don't get through the interview.
Yeah.
When you don't write like Thembi and your CV does not look like Thembi's CV, and you don't have a LinkedIn that looks like Thembi's, opportunities might not be there for you.
Yeah.
So we spend time understanding the barriers, and the barriers, of course, proximity, it's what they've studied before, it's the qualification and the quality of education that they have. It is also the scaffolding and the socio-emotional aspects and the soft skills that they have access to. And remember, we know that we've got challenges in our education system. So young people are coming in to school, and this is coming right from early years. These things are not addressed because the basic stuff are not built into the system. And so we said our program, it's going to be short and it's going to be in the IT space, because that's where the jobs are coming in. And that's where the jobs that did not require a 3-year degree. Some, it could be done in 6 months. But we know that for those kids to get through those doors and get those jobs and be placed, the program needed to have a work readiness component. And the work readiness component is about learning how to communicate, learning how to negotiate, learning how to manage your time, learning how to manage priorities, how to collaborate as a team, learning presence and how to present yourself as an individual, building in the writing and the language aspects of it, and building an output, something that's a product from that you've done, because now you've got a portfolio of evidence that you can put in front of someone. Even if you don't sound like Thembi, this portfolio of evidence shows that you can build an app.
Yeah.
It shows that you can build a website. It shows that you can actually work with a client who's got issues with and you can remote access whatever you need to do. So that was for 3.5 years. And then we also were very aware that the jobs that come in for young people don't necessarily come in your big multinational companies and your blue chip companies, but actually the jobs happen in the SMME space. So it was important for us in that program that we actually also advance and create opportunities for youth-led SMMEs. And again, we used the same model. We said we want SMMEs that come from townships. We want those that come from rural areas. We very well knew that they may not be think of the best performing sort of platformers yet, but it may be young people that are still building and still ideating and need to be scaffolded and needed to be accelerated. So we designed it so that they will go through either a 2-year or a 1-year acceleration, or they are matched with a mentor that would mentor them in their business to get them to the next stage. And really, for us, it was around youth unemployment. This is scary. But what was scarier is that in youth unemployment, you could see the gender, you could see the population group dynamics, you could actually see which areas were most affected. And if you wanted to do something that was transformational and probably sustainable, you needed to go to the roots and address those particular areas.
That's so interesting, I think, because the statistics are somewhere where we don't pay attention because of the voice that our media plays with who has voice. And so we put a very blanket statistic out there that this is the unemployment rate. But I just want to say something that resonated with me, with what you said, was that SMME,
Yeah.
even the ministerial position that is there, it doesn't get enough attention.
Yeah.
It should get a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Because that's where you enter. You could start your own firm that could be a small firm or a medium firm. And that is where people are going to get the majority of the jobs. And
Absolutely.
even when I look at people who are employed,
Yeah.
a lot of them are actually in the SMME space.
Yes. Ali, Urban Econ was an SMME.
I was just going to say that.
Data was an SMME.
100%. I've worked for all
Bearfish.
SMMEs. Bearfish was
Was an
SMME.
SMME.
Yes.
So where you get the richest experience and exposure and fine-tuning of your skills
100%.
is in the SMME space.
Yeah.
By the time you get into corporate or the big blue chip companies, you've had several years in SMMEs.
Exactly.
And that's where the
Yeah.
richest experiences are.
Yep. That's where and I think for young people, for me, it becomes, yes, beautiful to think about, I'll finish my supply degree and I'll go work at Unilever,
Yeah.
Packard, and you think of all these Nestle, Tiger brands, and you think of
Yes.
all of these big brands and you think, oh, how amazing, I'm going to land my graduate internship. And yes, it's beautiful. Depending on who you have as managing the graduate program and its design, you will have great exposure. Your brand is going to be amazing. Those roles are also highly competitive. And I want to own up and say, I did try at the end of my third year to get into those. I failed all of the assessments
Same.
that were there. I
Same.
never.
Same. 100%.
extremely competitive,
yeah.
Yeah. It's not you.
Exactly.
It's about you.
It's nothing to you.
Those are such. I telling someone something so recently. If interviews were the best assessment of people,
Yeah.
then we would have very good people everywhere.
Exactly.
We don't.
Exactly. It's culture fit. Budgets is people are willing to pay. It is. Remember the thing I mentioned about sometimes TVET graduates not necessarily getting opportunities because they don't look sound the way that fits with particular
Yes.
brands, and so we wanted to help just get them to the next level. So I think my advice to young people would be to say, firstly, strip away the brands, and come back to you. What are your values? What do you want to achieve? What's your purpose? If you had to sit down and say, I want my life to mean X when I die, start there. That's your why. Why do you want to do it? I'm in this because I have to see a different South Africa and a different Africa. I have a crazy drive to unlock opportunities for those who don't normally get a foot in the door.
Yeah.
So in spaces and tables that I sit in, the back of my mind is always saying, how does another Thembi, dusty legs, walking in Dweto with her granny, get to sit here
Yeah.
or get exposure to this thing that we're doing?
Yeah.
So start with the why, firstly. And then when you've got your why, then the next thing becomes, okay, now that I know why I want to do it, what could get me there?
Yes.
In other sense, what are the skill sets, networks, exposures that I need? And if you remember, I said there was a time when I was truncating my career,
Yeah.
getting to as multiple exposures as possible. I forgot to mention, I also taught at IES, UCT, teaching childhood,
Sure.
and at some point in my life. And this was, a dovetail opportunity that came from what I had exposure to. And then I thought, let me try this. Let's see how it works out.
My sister is an accountant. She's
Yeah.
married to an accountant as well. And I remember I was 13 years old and my dad had this really great friend.
Yeah.
And he ran a shop, a car parts shop.
Yeah.
And he had all these invoices.
Yeah.
He needed someone to do accounting for him.
Yeah.
And he made me do it at
wow.
13 years of age.
Yeah.
I still remember that experience.
Yes.
So talk about random things. That's one of the most random things. He underpaid me.
Of course.
It was
But
child
that's family,
abuse. That's family labor. But I still remember at that time just realizing being a data capture, basically.
Yes.
And it's an
You
experience.
were. It's an experience.
I think often world focus on, okay, what's gonna pay me, what is gonna look good on my CV.
Yeah.
When I'm starting out, I had the randomest experiences from volunteering And now, like, I'm still finishing my master's now,
Yeah.
but see how some things are actually skills that people want. And I would not have gotten them through the route that I'm like studying in academia, but they're still wanted, you know?
Yes,
And I think
absolutely.
that moves, like, it segues very nicely into my next question to you, which is perhaps my last. You've talked about having a hunger
Yeah.
for a drive for what you want to
Yeah.
do, knowing your why, having a passion.
Yeah.
Are the other characteristics that you say that people should have when they are kind of looking at, you know, growing themselves and reaching to where you are?
Ooh, Salah, thank you so much for that question. It is one that I'm always reflecting on because as much I'm an executive director now, I really see myself as an emerging leader. I'm very well aware that there's, people ahead of me that I could learn from, right? I think it's believing in yourself. Somebody once said to me, a colleague of mine was going through a rough patch, and he says to me, Demi, you got to believe in your madness. You got to believe in your madness because everything out there that is being done
Yes.
is because somebody believed in their madness.
Yes.
So believe in your madness because there's actually reason and sense in your madness. So I
Yes.
think, firstly, believe in yourself, even when it's difficult. Your lived experiences don't lie. And when you've acquired the technical skills and you've looked at the data, it doesn't lie.
Yes.
And I think the next thing is, and it's probably a different way of saying believe in yourself, be fearless. Because when you're fearful, it stops you in your tracks. It stops the amazing idea that you've mapped out on paper 10,000 times from going out to market
Yeah.
because you're scared. And we never get to see it,
Yeah.
or you never get to realize. So actually be fearless and fail. Don't be afraid of
Yeah.
failure. And I'm saying that because I'm saying that as a person who sometimes kind of stumbles and goes, oh, could this
Yes.
fail? Could this fail? And I've got mentors. One of my mentors now as an executive in my board taught me in the open license space, there's a term called fail publicly and fail fast. So basically just build it and let it fail. The reason there's open is so people can input and tell you what doesn't work.
Yes.
So you can actually redesign. So failure is in essence an opportunity to tweak
Yeah.
what you've put out in the world.
I mean, is constantly doing that. Like, they have these random products. They fail, they remove them. They continue.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So don't be scared to fail. I think getting network around you is also really important. I mean, I'm referring to people who are mentors, and this is not like structured mentorship type of sessions. It's someone I call and go, I've got a problem. I'm thinking of this, or hey, can you advise me? I want to do this in this way, and I think this is how it's going to benefit the organization. Have you come across this approach anywhere? Has it been used? And they give me 30 minutes of their time, and they share, oh, I've either not done it, or I did it in this other time. This is how it worked for us. And that gives me a data point of, okay, so it's been done, and this was the outcome. These are the things to watch out for.
Yeah.
I think also being honest with yourself and honest with your team if you're in a leadership kind of role, and be comfortable to say, I don't know yet, which is a hard thing.
It is.
It's
It
a
is.
very hard thing.
Yes.
When you've got faces looking, wanting an answer, and you're still figuring it out. I think it's also trusting others to guide you. I think that's part of that make great leadership and make a great and a successful sort of career. Trusting others to do if you're in university, don't discard your friends after you graduate. Don't.
Yeah.
10 years, 20 years, those friends are going to be your deal peers.
Exactly. It's so interesting. You and I hadn't talked for 5 years.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yeah,
Yes, we
hadn't.
haven't talked for 5 years.
We literally
And we
bumped
just
into each
started-
other in a cafe.
Yes, and then we
Downstairs.
started talking
Yeah.
right downstairs right now.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And after that, I asked for advice, and you said yes.
Yeah.
And we are here.
That's amazing.
Of course, I mean, we enjoyed working with
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
Yeah.
But definitely, my last question to you is, there's a job seeker. They're looking for a job, whether they've completed metric or they've completed university degree or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If there were 3 things that they have to do, what would it look like? And I just want to broaden it a bit to say that I have actually only gotten a job via a full interview process only once out of my 3 jobs.
Wow.
All 3 jobs were through networks, by the way. Someone referred, they knew my good work.
Yeah.
They said it to someone and that person gave me a job. They interviewed me a bit, they talked to me a bit, and then they were like, you're awesome.
And you've had a lot of interviews.
I've had
that
lots of
haven't panned out.
I've had lots of interviews that haven't panned out because I often say my skill is not in that interview.
Yeah.
And I'm now learning to get better at it. But after I enter it, people go like, wow, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Not to toot my horn a bit, but they just say, I'm amazing because I do the work.
Yeah.
I do what I do it well.
And I'm sure there are many people like that.
There are many people like that. And I'm just 100% sure about it. So going back about what are 3 things that someone who is seeking a job should do?
Yeah, should do. Geez, we are living in a world where visibility actually matters. So if you've got a phone, some data, get a LinkedIn profile firstly. Start learning how to put your ideas onto paper and demonstrating the soft skills that are required in industry. Critical thinking, ability to analyze data and innovate around data or report around data, networking and communication skills, right? If you just picked those 3, and this is just using LinkedIn, there's lots of different data portals that are free that you can use. So let's maybe use a data scientist, find a data set, play around with it, write reports on LinkedIn about the data set, create a series around it, and publish it. Because suddenly you're being made visible to lots of other people. Your university setting to also speak about it. There's lots of different organizations that tend to be out there. So volunteer and put yourself out there. I almost think we're in an era where you cannot be shy to put yourself out there. If you're in the creative sector, we've got spaces like where we are now. Start a podcast, start something. Because you know what starting something does and shows in terms of attributes? That you're a self-starter and you don't necessarily wait for somebody to tell you exactly what to do when. It shows that ability, that independence and trying to create value. All organizations look now for people that can create value for them. So you almost need to step out and show the world you can create value. That's 1. So you're looking for work. So, well, that's pretty much 2. I think, secondly, probably before you put up your LinkedIn and start creating is to go back and polish your CV. And your CV is going to be based why, the sectors that you want to get into and articulating it very well what it is. So because you've known your why and you've now understood the steps, I've got a learnership, I want to get into IT. Okay, I've finished my learnership to get into the IT job. If it's cybersecurity, I need this certificate, that certificate, that certificate. Okay, who can I follow on social media, cybersecurity, and shares opportunities that are free or funded around cybersecurity? Oh, here's a person. This is like not even saying you must follow just on LinkedIn. On TikTok, people sharing insights. On Instagram, where you're already spending all your time looking at all the funny videos and all of the other stuff, which makes us laugh but does not get you earnings. And start following them to actually know and see these opportunities that come. And when I'm saying in the IT sector, at least, these opportunities are every 6 months, you latch on them. Now my feeds on Insta are all about writing in books. And I'm seeing lots of like but like workshops and trainings around writings and storytelling. I'm seeing grants for emerging documentary, writers. They're there. You just need to use the world that you already have at hand and the time that you're spending doing something else to move you closer to your why. So that's probably that. So now that you know, now you've got CV and just put it out there. The networking is finding those free events. There are so many free events, guys.
Yeah.
Where you can network. And I think the biggest thing that sometimes we miss about networking is thinking that when you get into that space, you're going to immediately ask and they're going to give. No.
Yeah.
Networking is about being in the room, telling your story, listening to other people. You mentioned we knew each other like 4 or 5 years ago, and we could immediately, after 5-year gap, talk and connect, because in that moment where we worked together, there was a knowing and an authenticity. And I think when it comes to networking, that's the biggest thing. Be authentic. You are there, you're a human being first before you are the job you're trying to get, the fundraising you're trying to achieve, the partnership you're trying to build. You there as humans. So just human, how are you? How's the life? What's exciting about today? Oh, isn't this a beautiful event? What are you looking to get out of it? In that question, I haven't said anything about what I'm doing.
Yes.
Asking you, what are you eager to get out of it? You're attending Tech Fest? Oh, great. How many times have you come? Which of the podiums or the stands are exciting you? Why? Oh, that's very interesting. How does it match with what you're doing? What's happening? In that conversation, you're learning a lot more about what they're doing, what's interesting them, what problems they're trying to solve, why they actually made it to that event, who they're trying to meet. You're understanding what value they have and they want to bring into the world before you even mention your value on what you can bring. And only then, should there be synergies, you could say, oh, I'm working on something similar. Oh, or even just be, oh, have you spoken to so and so?
Yes.
They're doing something like this. And so you're now connecting before you're actually asking. And I think as human beings, we genuinely appreciate being seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my mentor said something similar to me recently. She said, when you're networking, it doesn't always have to be about getting something out of it. And it seems like such a straightforward thing, but my mind was blown. I was like, oh my God, you're right. Like, it doesn't always have to end up somewhere.
Somewhere,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Saleha is amazing at networking, but I wanted to two
I'm
stories.
learning.
I should go with you to some of the events. Tell me.
Honestly, just look at
We can tag team. I think it will be fun.
Yes, it will be.
We have
Always
been
nice
talking
to
for
have
1.5
company.
hours, by the way. Just
wow.
how
Oh,
amazing
man.
this has
Wow.
been. I want to share two stories, and then I want to talk about what is the one thing that we take away from this conversation. But two things and two really stories that really resonate with what you said last there. I was in a networking event, and I do this thing where if I know someone's title, I put them on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Right. I just put them on a pedestal, and I'm like, I'm a child, and they are the parents. It can often happen to us, right? And just seeing the nods around this room, because those people are just listening to audio, means that we do that quite a bit. So one day I'm in a room just before a program had started, and I was going to lead this program, and this British High Commissioner comes to me and he's talking to me. I didn't know who he is.
Yeah.
And because I didn't know who he is, we randomly start talking about his clothing and how he chooses clothing for social events.
Yes.
And we are randomly vibing about that.
Yes.
And for me, that was like, and then I came to know and suddenly I made it like he's above me and I'm below him. But before that moment, we were two professional people at the same level, at the same moment. And realizing he must have been like me at some point. The second experience I just wanted to share was about my colleague. She had just she was looking for a job. Her master's was finishing. She goes to a conference and she's like, I'm looking for a job to a friend. And her friend goes shouting around that conference room that my friend is looking for a job. And she gets a job.
Oh, wow.
I would have
She gets
hated
a
that
job.
friend.
I would have been like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
please
that's so
don't do
bad.
this.
Wow.
100%. She got an interview from that. It was in Johannesburg. She lived in Cape Town. She flew to Johannesburg, had the interview. That company hired her.
Amazing.
I know, right?
So it's what you said
Fearlessness.
about putting yourself out there.
Fearlessness. And that's something amazing. Like we were speaking to Cameron, like I said, this, and he does these walking tours.
Yeah.
And he said, you're just fearless. He's like,
Yeah,
I
he
just
said the
went-
first 4 or 5, it was just his friends.
and he said,
You know?
I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put myself out there.
Yeah.
And I have to say, there is a lot for me to learn on that.
Oh, can I pause you?
Yes,
You're doing this podcast, guys.
100%. That's a big
It
thing.
is scary though.
You're being fearless.
Yeah, I
Can
hear
you
you.
imagine 10 years from now what this could be?
Yeah, that's true, hey?
Yeah.
I guess we always think about what's now, not what it could
Yeah. Because we started A for Adventures and we started with 50 followers.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're now at 23,000,
be.
24,000.
Yes, I think across,
24,000.
Something like that.
Amazing.
I mean, I can't even imagine those number of people fitting in a room.
One
Yeah.
video was what, 6 million? And it's not 600,000, 900,000?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's insane.
exactly. See?
Yeah. You're right. Good advice. This is takeaway. To just be fearless and
Yeah.
and to like not listen to that little voice in your head
Yeah.
that says you can't do it and tell it, no, you know what, I can do it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
exactly.
name my little voice.
There we go. Yeah, name
You
it.
know?
I was also once
Have you
advised.
named it?
I call it Shaq. And not Shaq because Shaq is a bad basketball player. But when I was in high school, there was a girl in our team
Oh.
who was, let's say, stronger than me in the position we played and also stronger than me in assertiveness. And she could have me shriveling up into a little ball in a couple of words. I have not seen her since high school, but I remember the way Shaq used to make me feel on the basketball court. And I made it for the 3 years that I was in that team that if she makes provincial, I'm going to make provincial. I was like, okay, we both played post. And I always feel like an underdog next to her. I need to move to another position because, one, she's taller than me. She's stronger than me. She's been playing this game for much longer. And it's going to take me a while to get to exactly where she is. And so I was like, okay, I can jump. I think my arm strength is good. So I then started moving myself to position 2. So shooter and point guard. Came into campus, into school much earlier, 7 o'clock, so I could actually do my laps, kind of like do my dribbling, get my crossovers correct. So because if I'm playing a 2 or a 3 and she's a 4 or 5, that means I kind of low-key control her space because I'm the one moving the ball. But it also means she's not posting me out. She's not doing all of the things that make me feel small. I'm leveraging something else that she can't leverage. And the competition is kind of like equalized.
Yes.
We're both in the team. We're both useful. And we're both exceptional in our own spaces. So I named mine Shaq.
That makes sense.
When
I
it comes
get
up,
that.
I'm like, shut up, Shaq.
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
My biggest takeaway, that's such a funny story. My biggest takeaway from today, and every time I talk to you, is something so interesting that I have this very one-dimensional way of looking for jobs.
Yeah.
I go on LinkedIn and search for the job.
Yeah.
And just look at what's going on in the market. Yeah. But you made me realize a couple of years back as well, and something I'm relearning right now. Yes.
I did?
Yes. That sign up to job boards,
Yes.
look for jobs on Instagram.
Yeah.
And third thing, network.
Yeah.
And those things are so underrated.
Yeah.
You know, Saleha, when we were talking, when you started your career, that you were looking for these jobs that are posted in particular
Yes.
spaces.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the last 2 roles that you have gotten were not anywhere there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also it's like I think the ones that are posted are kind of like, oh, it's an entry level, you need 5 years of experience.
I know, that
And
always
I'm
makes
like,
me laugh.
you know, should I have started the minute I was born? Like, I don't know how to get this requirement. But yeah, you're right. I think it's networking and showing your worth and just I love that takeaway. Yeah, I think we often undermine ourselves, think that these are the only routes, but there are so many routes.
Can I add something to your basket of tools?
Yeah.
Challenges, hackathons, creative challenges. Remember the big thing about having a product at the end, and you're a scientist, and that's like the beautiful thing. You can actually have a product at the end. You're in policy, so if there are challenges, conferences around these things, take up the challenges. I mean, and on Instagram, there are so many youth exchange opportunities. 1 month in Canada, 1 month in this country, you present a paper. There's One Young World is coming to South Africa next year, and they currently have bursary for young people under the age of 35, either in industry or studying, and they give you a scholarship to be part of the event, the whole event. You have to write an essay and debate on some of the topics they give you. So that's also putting yourself out there. An organization takes out a hackathon, a call for hackathons. Apply. App of the year every year since then has challenges, you know? So different organizations have challenges, and sometimes we think of these as small or, oh, it's not a job. But just putting the time aside to take up this challenge that's put out there to apply, you lose everything you don't try. And so you miss the opportunity.
That's beautiful.
We have put you in a position where you're answering questions, but I'm speaking as well. There is a big takeaway here.
Yeah.
What's your takeaway from this conversation?
Gee whiz. Taking a moment to pause and recognize. I I think you guys did that so well. I really think you did. We take balance for granted, and balance doesn't mean copious amount. And I think in our conversation, doing the reflection, pausing in between the the questions, and just kind of replaying and just acknowledging something. I mean, what? It was a 2-second space of saying, "Oh, you're an executive director." Kind of heard that. That, I think for me, it's a takeaway that a moment to pause is also important. There's opportunities out there, and one needs to be determined to look for them, using whatever resources you have to look for them, nurturing relationships. And nurturing relationships doesn't necessarily mean you are keeping up to date every single hello, but it's just being authentic in how you show up in those relationships each time. Yeah, that when relationships come back years later, it's almost as if nothing is ever, like you've never been apart. And that's because you chose to kind of show up as who you are. And being open to being taught something different. Being open to being taught something different, like how people do things differently. I think that was my takeaway.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
That's a beautiful note to end on.
Yeah.
Thembi, thank you so much. This has been so insightful. I feel like every time I talk to you, I just learn something new.
Wealth of wisdom.
Yes, honestly. And would you be open to people reaching out if they would like to chat?
Absolutely. They can find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Happy for you guys to share my LinkedIn. My Instagram feeds are there, but they're mainly of other people, not necessarily mine. So I think LinkedIn is like the best space for anybody to reach out, and it actually also has all of my details. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much. To our listeners, if you have any questions, then please feel free to reach out. And until the next one, Asambe.